Hello, Internet. I'm Jackie Fox, and like many of you, I have spent the last couple of weeks playing Palworld because, man, this is a fascinating game that, well, it's truly underselling this game to call it a Pokemon ripoff. For one, ripoff implies that there isn't a level of quality or purpose here or originality, and this game has all of those things, but it also incorporates a lot of gaming loops and strategies from a ton of other genres of game and a ton of other hit games that I have played and loved up to this point. And if you're not a fan of all of those genres necessarily, then some parts of this game could be a little bit difficult or beyond what your comfort zone is or what you are necessarily used to. So it's not that I think that you need a ton of help with the basics. I just want to run through everything that I did getting started with this game just to make sure that you see all of those things, and if you see any things that I could do better, hey, let me know, because this game again has a lot of mechanical depth, so I wanted to just be sure that you understand all the things that you're playing with here. And one of the first things that I want to talk about is the world settings option. Before you even get started, you can adjust things like your EXP rate, your capture rate, the PAL appearance rate, which if you have a beefy computer, you might even be able to turn up, multiply the PALs out. Early in the game, I turned down the damage from PALs modifier because it's really easy to get bodied without any armor or anything like that. I also tend to turn down PAL hunger depletion rate. This helps with the cake farming. It also just helps in general. The stamina reduction rate means that mounts will lose their ability to sprint or fly a lot slower. Player stamina depletion rate is basically the same. This works for gliders and climbing though, and I also like to turn down my hunger rate. Turn up the drops to 3 times just so I don't have to farm or run around and hunt quite as much. And I'm going to turn down time to incubate a massive egg to 0 because this should make all eggs basically hatch instantly. With all of that done, I'm going to start my game, but I show you this because, especially with I'm not as familiar with or haven't played as much of the survival genre. So hunger mechanics, stamina mechanics, those sorts of things, especially the hunger mechanics, having to keep up with my party's hunger at all times is just a lot for me sometimes. So I like to kind of make a bit of an end run towards the feed bag, which can automate a lot of that, and automate a lot of that within my base as well. But I also like to turn that hunger down so I don't really have to play with that system. And you can turn it down so far that basically you don't have to deal with that mechanic if you don't want to. And that's one of the lovely things about this system. So unfortunately, my intention was to let you kind of watch alongside me as I play through the first parts of it and just kind of show you the highlights. But unfortunately, it took me a little while to figure out how to get my recording software to not do, this. And that's sped up, by the way. It's about 20 minutes of footage and about 40 frames in its entirety. But the sound was excellent, so I knew I had some potential. But with all of that being said, let's get into the game so I can show you a little bit of what I've done and what you should emulate and copy, and I'll try to find all the little tips and tricks along the way. If you especially have gotten a faster start like I did, you should be able to get through the first couple of levels pretty easily, and I actually made it a good ways into my playthrough without actually leveling anyone up. So actually catching any pals. I did catch one land ball pretty early on, but let me show you the starting location and we'll talk through some of the first things that you want to do and how to get a really quick start from this area. Also, if you have a computer, you can kind of avoid some of the map shenanigans. This is probably one of the glitchiest parts of the game, honestly. So the name of the game early on is going to be collecting very basic resources. You aren't going to have any sort of tools as you start out. So you're going to have to just either punch trees and rocks, which is particularly difficult. You can get some resources from that person I just talked to, but you're also going to be able to find some limited resources on the ground, like the wooden stone that I picked up. So you can look for that little stuff. Don't pick a fight with this big boy. That's one of the first lessons the game wants to teach you, because you will get bodied by it. But it's also pretty much a pacifist as long as you don't give it any reason to hate you. It's apparently over here eating berries from the looks of it. You'll also want to pick up some berries as well. You'll notice them getting berry seeds with the berries. You want to be able to get at least probably 3 to 6 berry seeds. This will see you through some of the box missions that we're going to talk about in just a minute. So that would be 6 berry seeds for me. These are 2 of the basic types of rock. There are a lot of things in this game that are made of rock that are mineable, but if you see a rock that looks like one of these just out in the wild, know that you can mine that. But at this point, you're still probably collecting stone and rock. Get back to the path. The path is a bit over here. One thing, as it turns to night, you're going to want to have a torch, because it will get very cold out here, and that will start to take away your HP. Now, even before you find a base, the primitive workbench is so cheap that you can just pretty much build one anywhere, and you only have to pick up basically 1 stick to be able to do that, or a stick or 2 depending on how you're playing. Just put this anywhere, build the things that it is allowed to build at the outset, and that should level you up a little bit. This leveling up is going to give you access to advanced technology and hopefully PAL spheres. So we're not actually going to build this, but the things that you're going to want to build is a pickaxe for mining rocks. This is the most important. Also a torch to keep you warm at night, because this is a cold region. It does get cold at night, which again will hurt your HP, as this is a survival game, and there isn't really a setting to change weather effects. So that's something that you're going to have to learn to deal with. You can also sleep through the night if you have a bed, but that's a little bit more complicated. Now, what you're going to be looking for to kind of advance your game from here is a good base location. And in theory, the best base locations, and I'm not sure if this is as true on laptop. It may be true on my laptop, unfortunately. It may be true on my laptop while I'm recording the game with OBS, but I can only really have the system resources to have 1 base, I believe. Having a second one is going to make the game run a lot worse. At least that's how it was in Xbox. I think you can kind of get around that better on PC, but ideally you want to be somewhere that's not near one of these fast travel points, these eagle statues. Because your base will function as a fast travel point. You see how easy it was for me to walk from the top of the hill where we first spawned to my base. So I've effectively kind of, even though this is in between 2 fast travel points, it is still a little bit of a waste. Also, the raid system, depending on where you are, your base can get raided. There are some spots that seem impossible to raid, and honestly, it's kind of easy to deter enemies from just walking onto your base as well. I was trying to deter bigger things by building these large structures here at the edge, so that something like a big old mama rest that we saw earlier doesn't just graze through my base. On the other side, I also built a ranch, which is kind of blocking this bridge a bit. Although I've definitely seen him like walk through the water before. So all of that being said, not really sure what's going to happen with this raid, if they're going to be able to figure out how to get into my base, but for the last couple of raids they haven't quite been able to figure that out. Nope, they just ran past it. Depending on where you start your base, you may have to defend against rampaging wild pals or that kind of thing via raids. Raids is also an option that if you don't like it, you can turn that off, and that's going to make the beginning of the game a lot easier. But once you have a number of pals on your base and you've leveled them up somewhat, they're going to be quite a formidable force. 1 or 2 pals is going to have a hard time dealing with your army. But what you're looking for on your base is sources of the basic materials. Like an RTS type game, you want to establish... Yep, running back by my base. I don't think he knows how to get in. Okay. So these rocks can be mined for basic stone. You can also get a bit of paldium fragments and a bit of ore, but not much. This is one of the basic things that you want to have access to a couple of on your base, because you will be finding pals that are capable of mining these. There is also another color of rock. We'll see one later. I'll point it out. It's an ore rock. I actually have one on base that spawns like right here. It will respawn after it's used up, I think about every day or so. This is also a thing that you can adjust to be faster or slower than that in the settings. And that, I think, is one of the important things to have on your base as well. Ore is pretty important for your playthrough. And also, there are paldium rocks. There should be 2 on the edge of my base, but I guess I farmed them recently as well. I can show you those, though, because there's some that spawn right across from my base as well. Another basic resource that you want access to is trees. You're going to find pals that can log for you, and that's going to give your base a built-in source of wood. Did he just pass out like right in front of the bridge because he couldn't cross? He's right on the edge of my base. Oh, actually, this is on my base. So I've got 3 of them on my base, actually. These are pretty neat. Unfortunately, they don't drop very many fragments, so it's hard to build up quite a stash. They're also kind of rare if you're not building by water, as you might have noticed so far. They tend to pop up on the banks of water features. Now, these water features are actually a bit of trouble for the base later on. As the footprint starts to get more crowded, it's going to become more and more of a problem that I have this big body of water that's kind of running through part of my base. But in terms of an early game base, I have plenty of space here, and I have access to all of the most basic resources. Not in the abundance that I would want for some of them, but this is a perfect early base location. That being said, there are certainly much more hospitable places to build than this, much cooler places to build than this, that are still within the beginner areas and will still be relatively safe for you to get started. But I find this one is interesting and notable just because of how many different resources it has, not in abundance, but theoretical access to, and the fact that you are just right here. This is so close to where you start your spawn that it's just a really easy place to kind of quickly go. I'm going to do a strange thing here. Since I reset the time, these should... Okay, yes. See, they are now... I only have to hold that to incubate them. Ooh, Dinosaur. Very cool. I've collected a number of eggs, but one of these is one of my breeding eggs, and it's something I want to put on my base immediately. Actually, you know, I kind of want to ride... You know what? I'll get my mount out of the second one. Let's see, this was also one that I just kind of found. Let's see what it is. Purin! Oh, wow, this is actually the fastest mount. So... or the fastest ground mount early game, or like even into the late game. Like one of the in-game creatures is a bit faster on the ground, but until then. So you found your base location, you've placed your PAL box. So the PAL box is going to determine where your base is, and you're going to get a bit of a radius around it. Let me just walk like straight out to one of the edges of my base. So you can see that blue line, that's going to be the edge of the base. So you can see I get a good bit of range in each direction. It's going to be in a circle, and that is what my base will be. So you kind of want to plant this guy right in the middle of some rocks and some trees. Not a lot of trees, because a lot of trees respawning regularly on your base can cause some pathing issues for the AI. And, well, the AI has some pathing issues in general. As you can see, there are still a lot of bugs and problems. What do you want, Serpent? What are you going for here, buddy? Why are you going through my door? Sometimes you'll see pals that have kind of glitched out into the areas they aren't supposed to be. You can just kind of refresh them at your base. You might want to pick a few other things that I haven't, but this is going to be a pretty good template to build from, because these are the things I think are basically required. With the exception of the wooden gate, you can probably skip this. It's good defensive fortification, but it's not necessarily required. I just had a weird glitch where my pals were consistently running to the same spot on my base, so I just blocked it off with the wooden gates. And then went into pelt armor. Cooler box is going to be important for keeping things from expiring while you're making cake. Then, you know, maybe if you don't have a Van Worm or you're going a little bit slower, a Nightwing saddle could be important, but you'll get that Van Worm saddle pretty soon after, and they're not hard to find either. The metal chest and cooking pot are good upgrades. I also picked up the Mega Shield and the glider starting at this point, but I probably could have skipped the glider and just held out for Celery. These two are pretty helpful for your base. They'll increase handiwork efficiency of pals and kindling efficiency, which are really important. This is the one that I definitely recommend, but this is pretty helpful too, especially later game. And also level 19 brings us the breeding farm, which I think is the most powerful thing in the game, which is why I built a whole guide around it. And then here at level 21, we can start riding Van Worm. And let's see, I've unlocked 2 levels since then. Don't really want any of this stuff. Metal armor is pretty cool. I think I'll just get the metal helm though and wait for temperature resistant metal armors. Now, early on in the game, before you've gotten heat resistant armors, there are going to be certain parts of the game that are basically going to kill you for entering them. The heat resistance and cold resistance are pretty important and are definitely worth unlocking. And again, I think probably even more important to unlock than regular armors are. Also, neat trick, if you have the resources to repair everything in your inventory all at once, you can just press Y and do it all like that. If you're trying to do that and it's not an option, it's because one of the things in your inventory requires something that you just don't have. Before going out to explore a bit more, let's show you the levels of my house. We're going to skip level 2 because there's nothing built there yet. It's also one of the least accessible levels. There aren't any stairs in between floors, unfortunately. That was the save space in the interior of the house. All the stairs are on the outside. While you're on your base, by the way, if you have a pal with appropriate work skills, say I have a Van Worm, which is a fire dragon, I could just throw that guy at my cooking pot, and he's gonna cook for me now. Get to, what are you doing? Are you cooking? You're cooking. Just not facing the cake. Which is a little weird, but okay. So, let's talk about your PAL box, and let's also talk about PALs and early PALs. You can roughly see things in the order that I caught them here. I started by doing the part of the tutorial to catch 5 lamb balls. This is also a great way to level up. If you can catch a full 10 of something, then you get a huge experience bonus. I haven't done that yet for any of the species, but it is a way of building your level up later game. These guys, I just want to focus in on them and show you work suitability. Let's zoom in on this concept. So these little land balls, despite looking utterly useless and being pretty useless in combat, although... Yeah, no, pretty useless in combat. They do have Handiwork 1, which means that a lot of the things that you can build, any of the structures that you can build, for instance, they can work on those. They can also work on assembly lines, they can work at crafting benches, they can automate a lot of work for you. They also have Transporting 1. We saw one of these just a minute ago carrying milk on its head. Either that or it was a pin gullet. I think it was a pin gullet, actually. So transporting means that, say, you see how there's all these things on my ranch. A lot of eggs, milk, wool. Transporting means that our pals will walk around and pick up some of those items and bring them to the nearest box, or nearest appropriate box. This is a food bin, and this is where they're going to put their feed, or their food items. Any expirables, basically. They will also eat from these boxes. So, if you have high value items like milk or eggs that are going to be put in those boxes, then what you want to do is make some other type of food and fill that box up with that. Oh, damn. Okay. Well, once you enter the cake era, you need 2 stoves. One that's just always going to be making cakes, and one that will actually cook things for you to eat. Okay. 2nd stove. Beginning of an era. See, Cativa, oh, look at that. They're all going to help me build this. Oh, man. So there's a lot of things on my base right now that have Handiwork 1, the land ball included. But talking about like other really super early pals, especially ones that you can catch in this particular location that you're going to want to add to your base early on. So you want somebody to break up rocks for you. They don't have the best skills at this. You'll see people with better mining skill a bit later on in the game that will be able to mine more complicated rocks. Like this kitty cat here can only mine basic rocks, which means that it's going to be really terrible at getting ore or coal. Actually, I think it might be able to mine coal. I've never seen one in that position, but maybe they can mine coal with mining 1. I'm not sure. But this also has Handiwork and Transporting, so it's a lot like land ball. So it's kind of like a land ball that can mine, that doesn't leave wool at your farm. But also you'll notice it has Gathering 1. So Gathering 1 is important because there's going to be like a 3-step process to all of your farms. And let me show you this Masanda here. Sanda's one of my favorite things to catch in the wild. It's also really important in my breeding system. This has Planting 2. That's going to seed the ground, get things started. Then you need a water type with Watering to help those encourage those plants to grow. And then Gathering is the final stage where they'll be harvesting. So your kitty cats can harvest your crops for you too. You're going to want to catch a grass type though, so that you have some ability to plant seeds. That is automated. You're also going to need a water type pin gullet to run around that has Watering. It also can cool your icebox, also has Handiwork and Transporting, so it's one of those versatile early game jack of all trades. If you catch a Crimis early, these also drop a little bit more wool than land balls, but they're a bit more useless. It's a bit of a trade-off. If you need more cloth, you need more cloth. You're going to get them. T-Fence can also water for you, but they're arguably way worse than any other water option, really. They're just really early game. Now, one of the advantages actually of having one of these early game, as I said, the early game can be pretty tough. Pals can be very dangerous before you have armor and stuff. This guy's activated ability will restore your health. So this guy's like a walking potion. That's actually incredibly useful for early game players, so I would say that there are still uses to this guy. Another one that you're going to want to catch, actually Fox Sparks is one of my favorites early on. Ruby has about the same stats. I'm just a Fox person, so I love Fox Sparks here. Fox Sparks is going to cook your food, and once you get into kindling and have to start making ore, which becomes necessary for basically everything remotely complex at all early game, you're going to need these guys because you can't do the kindling yourself. You're going to have a fire type. So this is one of the earliest ones that you'll be able to catch. And then Chickpea are going to lay eggs for you. That's going to become important for breeding, and it's a cool food source. Thanks for the eggs. I do need to eat things. Tombat I personally like because ultrasonic sensor can be really helpful. I will show you this in a minute. And then in terms of like other things that you could get for your base to kind of expand it, I've gone out and got Mozzarina. We talked about where to find Mozzarina in my how to turn nails into cake video. So these are going to be my milk producers. I also have an egg producer. I have a farming trinity. Also, Krimus can gather as well, so Krimus can help in the harvest. This guy can log for me. That's pretty helpful. Watering 2. And then these guys were actually on my base because I was breeding them. So these are 2 of the earliest field bosses that you'll be able to face. If you catch a male and a female specifically, which I lucked out in doing, then those 2 can breed together on the breeding farm with 1 cake to make Kitsan. I'm going to swap that in for one of them. Now, it's not going to level up super fast on my base, but it will level up slowly. I'm also going to... I don't know if I get the saddle for Pirin for a while, though. This might have to be, like, something I save for a later game. But actually, it's kindling 2 and logging 1, so it's actually slightly better than Kitsan. So I'm just going to put that on my base right away as well. And those 2 are going to be a huge upgrade from just having Fox Sparks. Oh, they're doing the same thing. Also, it's going to become increasingly important, kind of the added bonus abilities that pals have. For instance, Nightwing is one that you might want to try to catch one early on. You're going to have to get a technology that gives you some sort of ranged attack most likely to get one of these, unless you can just piss one off somehow. This is going to be your earliest in-game mount, although by the time I was ready to fly on something, I had already gotten Van Worm, so the better mount, so I figured I would just get this instead, skip the Nightwing phase. It is still important that you get a Nightwing and a Van Worm, because both of these factor into my in-game breeding guide. And as you can see, I've really only caught this one box so far. While I was out getting Masanda, though, or no, while I was out trying to catch Elizabeth, while I was out gathering honey, I got a Relaxosaurus as well. They're going to be useful later on. And while they are really good at running away from you, like these are really difficult to catch, just check out how many work skills this guy has. All at level 1, barely requires any food, so it's just also one of the first medicine production pals that you're going to see. This guy can basically do everything but your taxes on your base, and is a good basic grass type. Notice that also that it has planting and gathering, so this plus a water type gets you the holy trinity of food production for your base. But another thing that you're probably wondering about is technology. Every time you level up, you unlock one more tier of technology and some technology points. As you can see, I've banked up quite a few of those because I've been kind of selective in how I've chosen things. You want everything on level 2, that's all required. I skipped the old bow, but having a ranged option to ping things from afar is important, I think. Because I was running a high EXP run, I had my EXP modifier turned up on my server. I knew I was going to get to a better bow before I would really need a bow, so I just skipped that one. Food box is important, but again, I skipped the basic outfit, and I often skip the basic outfits because I would rather have an outfit that can be both an outfit and some type of temperature resistance, because that comes in handy more often. And also skip the basic stone spear and common shield. Both of those could be important if you're playing a slower run, then you might want those, and a parachute. Although you can get celery gloves starting at level 7, and celeries are super easy to find from one of the respawn points. A opportunity to show off this respawn point. This is one of the ones that you should get access to early on. It's near a number of things that are going to be useful, but also if you want a powerful glider that you barely have to spend technology points on, I'm out of arrows. Wow. Yep, I was not prepared for that last fight. ABP, always be prepared. You can't win a fight you're not prepared for. Well, you can, but it is a lot harder, and there's so much easier to fail. Alright. So that's going to give me another celery. And some PAL fluids. It's also a really great place to farm for PAL fluids if you need them. Typically you need them for like concrete, maybe making hot tubs, hot springs, but pretty much everything on up and down this coast is going to be a water type. And there's plenty of paldium rocks as well, so if you need paldium, this is a great place to go. But not really in a farming mood or place right now, so let's not. So all you have to do is die or respawn, and you'll be able to get your hands on one of those pretty easy. A lot of people recommend Foxspark's Harness if you want a flamethrower that does pretty ridiculous damage early on, especially if you catch a lot of Foxsparks and condense them. But I skipped that for the mounted torches so I can light my base. Statue of Power, it's going to be required. PAL Workbench also required. I don't really like these two, but they are required by the game, and starting at level 7 you can have Celery as your glider. Now I want to upgrade to Gale Claw eventually, but I think Celery is probably the best early game glider. I also like Daydream's Necklace just to have kind of added damage. The Crusher was required for the game. I skipped these outfits too because I wanted to go into the pelts. Springs required by the game. Dire Howl is actually one of the fastest mounts in the early game. One of the fastest in the game as well, but really good mount early on. Until you start breeding, you're going to breed a better mounts pretty fast. One of the first pieces of technology that I got though was the feed bag, because I want to be able to automate away. And let me the whole hunger mechanic as much as possible. I just need to remember to fill my feed bag and I'll be fine. And also the egg incubator was also an ancient technology point thing. And you get ancient technology points from your first clears of boss battles. So both of these things are limited. You want to be kind of selective in how you use them. You can just kind of copy my stuff. You may want to get a little bit more, especially if you're playing a slower game with less EXP gain. Oh, that's a way to light a fire. Okay. Well, I do have another cake though, which means that I can go on to my next breeding pair. This next breed is going to produce for me a Rayhound. See, I'm doing good on milk at the moment, but I'll put my milk producer over here. I need to add my Dire Howl to my base, and then I'll remove my lamb as well. This was a male Dire Howl, so I'm going to... Well, I was going to try to breed that with a Nightwing, but Okay, so after consulting my research, the other breeding path that I have is with Sweepa, who's also male. So it looks like I've got to catch some girls. Fun fact, but cakes don't expire in here, although they can get eaten pretty quickly if you've left the pals alone for a while. So ready to go, I can move on to my next breeding pair. I can always come back and make more Rayhounds if I want to. Workaholic. Okay, so pretty good traits. This is also a really fast one that can double jump, I think. So really one of the better upgrades and one of the easier upgrades that you're going to get from Keatsun, although it doesn't do the temperature resistant things, but definitely a good upgrade for your Direhowl. At least if you can saddle it. I think the saddle's going to be a bit higher of a level. And like I said, Pyron is also a really good mount, especially to have this early on. All right. So, Serpent, why are you like this? Why are you like this, friend? Come here. Just come here. But did you phase? What? Look. Get out of my house. Shutting this door. Stay out. Arsax is just cranking through the ingots. As you can see, level 2 kindling is quite an upgrade. Okay. Folks, I don't know if you hear that too. Honestly, at this distance, I'm not sure I hear it. There's only one way to find out. The sound definitely went away when I went this way. Try flying. Oh dang, I thought I heard a lucky. Okay, well I think I'm gonna have to end it there for now. And thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.